The Rams get some bad news heading into week 1. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you want to support every episode. Hit the like button, drop a comment, and podcast listeners, write us a review. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation, Locked On here. And also, as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host of the Rams flagship radio station, and also one of the hosts of the DeMarco and Travis afternoon show on ESPN LA, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, it's finally here. We are Robert Woods days away from the Rams' first game of the season. All this previewing, all this offseason talk. We get tangible football to really talk about, so we cannot wait. But we're going to start with some not so good news, and that is, Travis, that Ahkello Witherspoon could be a question mark for Sunday's game. He missed practice with a knee injury, and the Rams, they don't have a starting cornerback on their unofficial depth chart. And Witherspoon, he's listed with Kobe Durant, Darius Williams, and Emmanuel Forbes Jr., but he did play in 13 games for the Rams in 2024, had 5 starts. I mean, this is a guy who's a veteran that you could have certainly almost expected to be one of the starting outside cornerbacks in this game. So, definitely wanted to have better news heading into this one. And, hey, Nico Collins is legit. CJ Stroud's going to try to give him the ball. It's going to be a problem for the Rams potentially. Yeah, look, you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this. I think that's one of the things that is a question mark on this Rams team. We know what the offense is going to look like. We know what the quarterback's going to look like, assuming health. You know that Sean McVay is going to be Sean McVay. You know that front four is going to be terrific. But one of the big questions was, what does the back end of that defense looks like? And Ahkello Witherspoon, look, he's not going to go to the Pro Bowl. He's not going to be a guy that has, 8 interceptions in a season, but he's a pro. Like he does the job. He's been really good for the Rams the last couple of years. He fills a very specific role for them. And, you and I talk about this a lot when it comes to respect to the Dodgers or anything else. Like a lot of coaches, managers, as long as they know what they're going to get, it doesn't always have to be an A. If I know a guy can give me a B every single time, or even maybe a B- or a C+, they can work with that. And I think that's kind of where Ahkello Witherspoon is. And, we'll see. You made your prediction yesterday that you think Forbes may lead the team in interceptions. This could give him an opportunity to kind of step on that field a little more frequently than he might have otherwise. But I'm with you. This is certainly not the news. A guy that you could at least kind of know what you were going to get from in week 1, and now he's likely to be unavailable. Yeah, and who knows? I mean, we don't know what Sean McVay had up his sleeve. It could have been Darius Williams and Kobe Durant. Could have been Emmanuel Forbes and Ahkello Witherspoon. I think that we have the guys that we assume will be in there, but the truth is they had not named 2 starting cornerbacks up until this point. But it definitely hurts you on the depth standpoint. If one of those guys started and didn't have success, then he would have another option to come in and play that position. And that's going to be one of the key matchups in this one now if Ahkello Witherspoon can't go, and that's who matches up with Nico Collins, because Ahkello's got that size. Kobe Durant has the speed. He kind of plays bigger than his frame. But Nico Collins, I mean, I think he's probably one of the most underrated elite-ish. He's kind of like elite adjacent, really. But when he's right, I mean, this is a guy that he kind of got top 5, top 8 wide receiver potential in this league. He's already really had a really nice, young, successful career. By the way, Ohio State quarterback going to a Michigan receiver, it's got to be kind of fun, right? Yeah. They probably don't talk during the week. They just get together on Sundays. I'm with you. I think this goes back to something that the everydayers will be familiar with, something that we've talked about. This is why it's important that the Rams get a lead.
This is why it's important that the Rams control possession. This is why, Kyron Williams having a big day, I think, becomes more important because, the more times they're on offense means that their defense doesn't have to be out there. The more points that they can score means the more that Houston's going to have to try to chase and push the ball, which means that front four, that Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and the whole group of guys, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, you name it, they're going to be able to pin their ears back and go get the quarterback. But if it's close, if the Rams are on the field a lot defensively, then those depth issues, whether Witherspoon is going to be a starter or not, who knows? But that gets exposed the more that they're out there. So it puts a little extra emphasis on the offense too, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think the reason why I expect to see Kobe Durant is because he's 5'11", Darius Williams is 5'9", and Nico Collins is all of 6'4". That's what made Akello the best matchup for him in this one. But hopefully he's got a couple of days to kind of get better. I think guys are always going to want to do whatever they can to play, especially early on in the season, because the last thing that Akello wants is to have whoever's guarding Nico Collins is, okay, he's got my position now, right? So guys want to get off to a really good start. There's always competition within teams.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. The really good start, I think, is important because we know we got Tennessee in week 2, and you don't want to count things before they happen, but that feels like a real opportunity.
Whoa, I got to cut you off. You say we've got Tennessee in week 2?
Did I say that?
Did Travis Rogers say we? I didn't know you played for the Rams. Wait, I'm all for that. I do it all the time, but you've been against that. I'm actually happy right now. I made my day.
It slipped. They have Tennessee in week 2.
Too late now.
You're right. We have Tennessee in week 2, but for the first time in a long time, they have a chance to get off to a really good start. And this is one of those things, you need to beat. And Houston is, I think, probably the favorite to win the AFC South. So that's probably, you're looking at a potential playoff team. It's a good measuring stick coming right out of there. You'd like to have your full complement of players, and maybe they won't. Maybe Witherspoon will be down. We'll see.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that you really, like you always say on the show, want to put some money in the bank early, and they have an opportunity to not start 3-6, to not start 1-4 because of a schedule that kind of lines up better for them.
When Philly's waiting for you in week 3 too, it's just, we saw them last night. That team looks awfully good, and assuming they're going to play with their full defense and not get a guy kicked out before the first play of the game, I think that it gets even more challenging. So it's just, the Philadelphia game, sure, can they win it? Of course they can, but that's probably one you're not going to win. The last thing you want to do is be 3 weeks in, be 1-2, or God forbid 0-3, and the swing game is the Houston game, and this is it's a really big deal. It's nothing crazy like a must win or anything like that, but this is one of those games that when you look back and the difference between winning the division or being a wild card or being out of the playoffs by a game, it's games like these.
Yeah, and Houston's a good team. It's actually be their first trip to SoFi Stadium. You've got Sean McVay 6-2 in openers. You've got a Texans team that they're not going to travel like the Packers or the Eagles or teams like that. So the Rams should be in a good spot. Also, the Texans are dealing with their own injury issues. Yeah. Adam Schefter, he reported yesterday that Christian Kirk is expected to miss Sunday's game against the Rams due to a hamstring strain. So Christian Kirk is that veteran that they're hoping to bring in. You don't have Tank Dell. You also have Braxton Berrios. He missed the first 2 days of practice. So they're a little thin at that wide receiver position. And we know the issue for the Texans last year was kind of protecting C.J. Stroud. They have all these slow developing plays. Now they have Nick Caley in there, and it kind of puts them in a tough spot for week 1 if you're missing 2 key receivers. Nico Collins does what he does, but hey, that could be, if there's a game for your cornerbacks to not have as much depth, it could be the one where you're going up against a Texas team that has their own injury issues at the position.
And like you said, that offensive line, Laramie Tunsil's gone. They are a work in progress going up against one of the best fronts in the NFL. You don't have a ton of wide receiver depth, like you just mentioned. This is an opportunity to put some pressure on the quarterback, and it kind of comes back full circle. If those guys up front do what they're supposed to do, the back end can be less than perfect, and they're going to be less than perfect if Witherspoon's not able to go.
No doubt about it. And it's an opportunity for those other guys. Emmanuel Forbes. I'm putting my hands together. Hey, my boy. I'm all in on Emmanuel Forbes. But coming up next, we got more matchups that will determine who wins on Sunday. And what do we think of the Eagles yesterday? Should the Rams be less scared of the Eagles? I know the Rambley's not scared of the Eagles, so we'll talk about that. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
This episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. And with football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. Last night on Prize Picks, bam, hit another one. Took the easy money, right? All of a sudden, more than half a yard for Dak Prescott. Jumped on that, paired it together with more than half a touchdown for Saquon Barkley, and boom, there you go. It hits right away. That's it. That's Prize Picks. More or less on 2 to 6 stat projections, and you can make money. And right now, when you download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. And let's talk about Mazda, right? Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety and performance and style to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Just like an athlete focuses on all the little things, Mazda's doing the same thing, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. You can feel it in the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, all standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. So whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Lots of new viewers, lots of new listeners this week. And if you're new, now's the time to join that Everyday Listeners Club. You don't listen to just like the Monday episode after a win or loss, the Friday episode for a game. You got to listen to everything. You got to lock in, okay? The dream is the journey, right? I mean, get on this ride with us for Rams football and then listen or watch every episode and you won't miss a thing about your favorite football team. Okay, Travis, so we're going to do these matchups, but I thought, hey, let's talk a second about this Eagles team because what a start. You had a nasty knee injury. You had a brawl. You had an ejection. Football's back, baby. I mean, you had people making memes with a Hawk Tua girl and Jalen Carter on Dak Prescott. I mean, we are so back. I don't know if you saw that, but we are so back. So, look, this Eagles team, I predicted a loss just because you kind of have to find those losses. You can't pick your team to go 17-0, and it is on the road. But the defense didn't look dominant. Dak Prescott had like a perfect PFF grade against them, and yeah, I don't think that they look a little vulnerable. It's going to be early in the season. So I actually feel better today about the Rams going into Philly and getting a win than I did before yesterday.
No. I like the idea of the Hawk Tua memes. I'm going to have to make sure that I circle back and see those. I haven't had the pleasure at this point, but I think I could probably figure out what it is. Dude, Jalen Carter got kicked out before they played a single game. It's impossible to evaluate that defense without him. He's one of their best guys. And you saw what they were able to do. Dak was really good. And that maybe is a silver lining there for the Rams that they're able to do that. But when you're missing one of your best defensive guys and you can run the ball the way that Dallas was able to run the ball at him yesterday, the first 2 or 3 plays after Carter got kicked out of the game were exactly where Carter would have been standing had he not been, so stupid to get kicked out of the game like that. Look, the Rams are really good. The Rams, I think, are going to be able to give anybody a run. It's just in Philadelphia is tough. I don't think anybody's got an answer for Saquon Barkley. He's still just an absolute beast. But yeah, who knows? If they, clearly an emotional player, clearly an emotional group. Like you said, there was a fight, more than one fight. There was constant pushing and shoving. So maybe the Rams can get these guys on tilt a little bit and take advantage of that.
I just look at their secondary because Quinyon Mitchell was so good for them last year. And
Corey Jackson got torched.
Adoree Jackson, Jacorian Bennett got cooked. Their coverage combined, they earned a 37.9 PFF grade. And you mentioned the Dory Jackson, the secondary. Well, the Rams got better from a receiving core standpoint by adding Devontae Adams. You mentioned Saquon Barkley. Well, the Rams got better by adding Poona Ford, and their young players are getting better. So I just think that, hey, if the Eagles are supposed to be this juggernaut in the NFC, which last year when the Rams played the Eagles, the Rams looked like they were outmatched.
They did.
And I don't think they're going to look outmatched against the Eagles this time around.
I hope not. We'll see. It's the first couple of weeks of the season are always so weird. Everybody's trying to figure out exactly where they are and who's ready to play, who's still kind of easing their way into it. It is a challenge. I like, put it to you this way, D-Mac. I like that they're getting them first, or not first, but early. I like that they're getting them in the early part of the season. I know that injuries can kind of be an equalizer and all that stuff a little bit later on, but if Matthew Stafford is healthy, if Matthew Stafford is good, and Devontae Adams is what I expect him to be, they got a chance to beat anybody. And maybe Philly, defending the Super Bowl is really difficult. It's been a really rough. The Chiefs are the only ones that have kind of been able to do it in recent memory. And weird stuff happens in this league, and who knows? Getting them early might be exactly the right time.
Yeah. There was another good one with Jalen Carter. It was like Jalen Carter's week 1, and it had the Aaron Rodgers with the Jets with the flag, running out. That was his week 1. Like,
I just
kept seeing players think they can get away with the spit, though. You know what I mean?
No, didn't get away with the spit. The one that I kept seeing last night was the super bad when they're standing on the corner and they're not invited to the party. That was the one that I kept seeing.
That's super bad's all-time class, like top 20, 25 for me for sure. But let's get into some more of these matchups that I think are going to determine this game, because you look at where the Rams are at. One of the, I think, critical pieces early on this season is protecting Matthew Stafford, and Alaric Jackson being in this game, dealing with the blood clots and clearly being good enough to play. He's got to go up against Will Anderson, and Will Anderson, we know he's going to try to get after Matthew Stafford. If I'm the Texans, I want to test that back out early. So it's going to be critical to be up to the task of going up against one of the best edge rushers in the sport.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if anybody has paid enough attention to this, that Alaric Jackson is a really good player. Like, this is one of the great success stories that the Rams have put together over the last several seasons, that this is an undrafted guy that they turned into a starting left tackle in the NFL, and a pretty good one. Like, we really didn't talk about him too much last year, D-Mac, about as far as him being, a weak link. We've seen it when guys like Joe Noteboom went in there, when McClendon was in there. It's just like, this is not working at all. And Jackson just kind of held it down, and we really didn't say his name very often, which for an offensive lineman is a really good thing. But blood clots, as everybody knows, those are really scary. Those are no joke. Those can come back without any sort of warning. Who knows how much time he's going to miss? Who knows what not being able to work out with your teammates as a collective, right? I know he's done a lot of individual drills during the offseason, but he hasn't done any team drills. I think it's a really big deal. With so much time spent on Matthew Stafford and his health, and Devontae Adams coming over, and Jared Verse coming into year 2, and all that great stuff, and that's all really good news. But your left tackle really not participating in anything team related for the entire training camp is a big question mark. And Will Anderson's no joke on the other side, so buckle up for that for sure. Yeah,
this is just going to be a massive development, really. I mean, can Alaric Jackson handle not only Will Anderson but Danielle Hunter, coming off a training camp and a preseason where he wasn't in there every single day, and he was trying to still get himself back. And look, like you mentioned, I mean, this is definitely a major success story. To get a UDFA, just become a starter is already a big deal. But he's turned himself into an average to an above average left tackle at one of the most important positions in all professional sports. I mean, it's not Kurt Warner leading them to a Super Bowl and him becoming the player that he was, but I mean, it's like a Max Muncy, right? I mean, he comes in and he's a spring training invite. He turns into an all-star. Like, this stuff just does not happen. It's a major testament to the Rams player development. But let's also be honest too. They paid him, right? They gave him a new bag. So they're going to want to make sure, we knew about these blood clots, right? They're familiar with it from years past. And it's very serious. And something like this has to be addressed with medicine. So it's not like he can train to not have blood clots, right? So I just hope that everything kind of works out for him.
I do too. And, the teams that are really good and go deep into the playoffs with left tackles that aren't very good, it's not a very long list, right? And it's just, you're going to need to have him play. You're going to need to have him play well. You're going to need to have the consistency. When the Rams have been good under Sean McVay, one of the more consistent issues that they've had is that offensive line is pretty healthy and pretty good all year long. When you got to start shuffling guys in and out is when it gets real complicated. And, if your left tackle goes down, the chain reaction down the line on both sides is legit. And you're playing guys and you got to shift tight ends to different sides. It is a big, big deal. So cross your fingers that he's ready to go.
100%. I think it's a good for him to have a test like this early, because if he performs well, I think you're going to feel good about him for the rest of the season. But coming up next, we got more key matchups, and one matchup that it's actually a Ram kind of versus a Ram. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
It is almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players deliver when it matters most. Let's break it down. Let's talk about a streak starter that we're hoping happens, and let's talk about Davante Adams, right? We need him to deliver in a very big way, whether it's getting in the end zone, whether it's getting a big first down, whether it's being the guy that draws all the attention so every guy opens up. When he delivers, everything else gets a lot easier. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you know that this guy can put it on you. So cross your fingers that Davante gets on a streak starting this week against Houston. And just like he delivered for the Rams, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay, so we talked about the Texans pass rush. How about the Rams? Because you got Jared Verse going up against Ariante Ursary, and Ursary, he's the guy that has to go up against the reigning defensive rookie of the year. And think about this. You had 3 Rams that had 7.5 or more sacks last year, and none of them are Jared Verse. So for him to go out there, get to the quarterback early, have that be a number that he kind of improves upon, I know that's big for him. And you don't use that to completely evaluate pass rushers these days, but it's important for them. And I think it's going to be big early on in his season. I think we're going to see he had 4.5 sacks the first 3 weeks, right? I mean, he's that good.
I was just going to say, Doug, that Jared Verse got a ton of attention last year, rightfully so. He was the defensive rookie of the year, rightfully so. He was 4th on the Rams in sacks. 4th, right? The Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, and Byron Young all had more sacks than he did. He was 4th. And he will not be 4th this year. I feel pretty good in saying that he's not going to be 4th. I agree with you. I think that you're going to have him in double digits sooner than later. That by the time this season is all said and done, it better be somewhere, 12 or 13, something like that. I really do think he could take his game there, because there were so many different instances where he was close, where he ran by a guy, where he let a guy slip out. And I think this is where the development between year 1 and year 2 really is going to start to show. It's that deal where I know I can get there. It's not the physical part of this. It's not being able to overpower the guy that's on the other side of me. It's being able to do all those things and still stay in the right position and know to get to the quarterback at the right time. It's almost going a little slower in the process, knowing that your stuff is good enough to go do the job. And I think that spending a whole offseason getting into that mode has been really good. Every single person I've talked to coming out of the Rams during the training camp has said, dude, this guy is going to go bonkers this season. So I'm really excited. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he had a couple of sacks by the time we're done on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, he's he's got the talent, he's got the ability on the football field, but also just that extra juice and charisma to be like the face of your franchise type of player. Like he has that kind of ceiling, and you really can't say that about a lot of defensive players like edge rushers, but he definitely has that. We saw Michael Parsons go to the Packers, and I'm sure he's gonna have a really good year. But Jared Verse is someone that it makes you feel a lot better that you didn't have to go out there and give up picks to get someone like that because you thought he would be the missing puzzle piece. So very excited about the year he's going to have. And then we got to talk about Davante Adams. Just seeing Davante Adams in a Rams uniform alone is going to be awesome. To me, football helmet plus the dreads, man, it's just like chef's kiss. You know what I'm saying? And Davante Adams is he's just got that extra it factor. And I want to read a quote from Yarbs, the wide receivers coach, that he said after a couple of practices ago when he was asked about Davante Adams. And what he said about Davante Adams, he was asked about just like how good does he look and is he the same guy that he was? And Yarber said, I didn't think he was going to be the same guy he was 5 or 6 years ago, but he is. And if that's true, like if he's like 80 or 90%, like what that could do to this Rams offense, it's almost like we're talking top 5 level offense. Like he's that good. And I'm sure going up against Derek Stingley, who he's right there with Surtain as one of the best cover corners in the sport. They're going to probably move him around a little bit, but I'm just so excited to see what he can do on the outside, winning those one-on-ones and giving Matthew Stafford like a big play option.
Yeah, for sure. And having 2 options, I think, is really because the Rams really haven't had that unless you go back to, maybe the middle of 2 years ago when Kupp was still performing at a reasonable level and available. But having Davante do what you just described, D-Mac, having him be able to do, let's say he's 90% of the best version of himself. That's an incredible player, right? 95% of that is an incredible player. And if Puka's doing what we all expect Puka to do, that's 2 weapons. I think we know what we're going to get from Kyren Williams, just kind of solid play, not a bunch of flashy ones, but that he's going to do what he's being asked to do. And having Matthew Stafford with 2 weapons to pick from, that is incredibly exciting. And I can't wait to see Davante either. I think that of all the things we've talked about all offseason getting ready for this, that's at the top of the list for me. It's like the Stafford health is the biggest question mark, but the thing that I'm most excited to see is Davante Adams in a Rams uniform, down the field, making big plays. They just have not had that in their toolbox in a really long time. It's exciting to know that they have a guy that at any point could just bust one. That's awesome.
Yeah, we talked about all offseason, Travis. To pull this off, not only do you make the bold move and you move off of Cooper Kupp, a franchise legend, and he goes to a division rival, you potentially upgrade significantly with Davante Adams. Like, this is not normal to have a 1A and a 1B at that position. You can talk about guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, last night A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, maybe CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, right? But outside of those 3 tandems, I mean, there's not a lot of bet. I think you could, maybe not one. Maybe you don't pass the Chase T. Higgins, but I do think that by the end of the season, you could be talking about Davante Adams and Puka Nacua as the second best receiver tandem, just because Chase did his peak of prime. But who knows? Maybe even 1, right? I mean, but it's very rare. There's 32 teams in this league. There's only like 5 that have receiver tandems that are this caliber.
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit. I really wouldn't put anything on. I'm with you. I think that the Cincinnati guys are probably the best. You mentioned the other good ones. Minnesota is in there too with Jefferson and Addison. That's a pretty good group. But yeah, you're right. This is as good as you could reasonably hope for. I think that any Rams fan that's being objective, I understand there's an emotional component to seeing Cooper Kupp leave, but Davante Adams is better. Davante Adams is just a better football player at this point in his career. And Cooper Kupp will always be fondly remembered here, Super Bowl MVP, all that stuff. But just for the 2025 season, assuming health, he's better. And I'm excited to see. And it's not just that it's better, it's different. It's just such a different dynamic that they're bringing. And I'd like that they have a little bit of as opposed to Nacua and Kupp, who are really similar, you've got Davante, who is one flavor of ice cream, and you've got Nacua, who's a very different flavor of ice. It's like they are not complementary. They're really different. They complement each other, and the difference is there, but it's not redundant, I guess is a better way of saying it. And Sean McVay with more weapons, and we haven't even talked about Terrence Ferguson. I hope we're talking a lot about him come Monday morning. they've got a full toolbox for the first time in a while on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think Puka Nacua is a guy that has focused on other areas of his game because he feels already confident about already what's made him successful in this league, and he's talking about just winning those one-on-ones. And Devontae Adams, one of the things that he's learned from him is how to get in and out of those breaks and win those one-on-ones. And hey, Puka's a guy you already talk. You kind of made it when you can just say Puka, and you're talking about, right? Just like you're talking about super bad McLovin. Like when you go one name basis, McLovin, remember, it doesn't have a last name. Remember, it doesn't have a last name.
You went with McLovin? It was either that or Muhammad.
But okay, last one I want to fit in here. I kind of teased it, a Ram versus a Ram, and it's Matthew Stafford versus his back, right? Yeah. Like, will Matthew Stafford's back cooperate? And I think if there's anyone out there that's saying he's going to be 100% fine, that you've either never had a bad back, you never watched sports injuries before, but I think that no matter what, he's just tough as nails, and you gotta bet on Matthew Stafford every single time. But I cannot wait till after the game when the Rams win 24-17. But when the Rams win and the first reporter says, hey, Matt, how did the back hold up today? And he goes, oh, it was fine. All thanks to the training staff and everything we did. And that's what I want to hear. But let's hear what you have to say.
I hope so too. But here, let me throw a little cold water on this as we go into the first week of the season. Like I told you, when I'm talking with folks and everybody's super high on Devontae Adams and everybody's super high on Jared Verse, everything I've heard about Matthew Stafford is, yeah, we'll see. And that's like, okay, like everything is, yeah, we hope he's all right. We hope he's going to be good to go. We hope that, the back, that it's not oh, no, it's fine. It all said. It's more like, yeah, let's see. And the other thing that comes right after that, we'll see is, hey, Jimmy G looks really good. I don't like that. If you're already trying to get me psyched for his back, and look, I think Jimmy G is the best possible backup that you could have reasonably hope for, a guy that's been a starter in the league for a long time. We've talked about that, but if the question about the quarterback is always, yeah, we'll see, and hey, if he can't, the backup's ready, that's concerning. It's concerning.
Yeah, that's definitely a conversation I hope we never have to have. Is a hobbled version of Matthew Stafford better than a 100% version of Jimmy G? Like, that would not be a good sign for how this season is going. But hey, like we always like to say, anything can happen. I hope it doesn't, and I'm pretty confident that it won't. But I got the Rams winning. I don't know. You are you're a broadcaster in this one. I mean, can you throw up a pick, or you can do like the Kirk Herbstreit thing where you can't pick?
No, I think they're going to win. I think that you said you think they're going to win 24-17. I think they're going to score more points than that. I'll give him 31. I think it could be like a 31-21 situation. I think that they're going to run the ball a lot this weekend. I think that's where they have an advantage, that the front for Houston is pretty light. There's not a bunch of maulers up front. If the Rams can get them on their heels on the ground and then all of a sudden use the pass to kind of finish it up, I'm optimistic. I think they're going to win this game.
If they score 31 against a team that's going to be a top 5 defense, man, that would be a great sign. I hope we see that. But let us know down below, what are your predictions? What is your biggest key matchup you're looking for, and how much confidence you have in Matthew Stafford's back? Let us know down below. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams House.